looking at more information here. Actually, we're seeing what's going on here in Irving, Texas, the new information that has come in. By the way, this is where the Dallas Cowboys practice. Irving, Texas, just to the north and east of Dallas there along Interstate 30. Several people were trapped in the dome. A film crew was in there, and apparently some injuries, and you can see why. I mean, the entire stadium, it looks like, just collapsing, or at least huge sections of it. It's sometimes hard to see exactly the extent of the damage, but you know it's not good here. The roof looks like it's in a pretty rough shape. So, man, that's just the scary part of some of these thunderstorms. We hate to see this kind of footage. And look at all the standing water back there as well. We are getting every kind of problem you can think of, from the strong winds here, damaging complexes, the flooding rain, water rescues all over the place. We've seen it in Dallas just a few days ago, some overnight water rescues. But people on the scene say it looks like a war zone right out at Valley Ranch right now, and that's where the Dallas Cowboys across practice. They were inside that building at the time. NBC 5's Ashanti Blaze is there tonight. What can you tell us right now, Ashanti?
Well, Kevin, I think you explained it exactly right, a war zone. As soon as we drove up to this area, we were seeing trees down, some trees that were cut in half by lightning, and then we drove up and saw the actual facility, which is actually right behind me, behind this fence that you're seeing right now. It looks an absolute mess. It's just a big pile of white and a lot of different metal, just kind of all convoluted together. There were a lot of people out here who either heard it happening, saw it happening, ran out here as soon as they heard a lot of the metal crashing around this area. Some people were concerned that it was actually a tornado that hit this area. What we were hearing from Steve is that it was just really high sustained winds that may have been the cause of this. At this point, a lot of people are spectating. They're trying to figure out what's going on.
Give me a sense of that building that's behind you, because I've been inside that building myself. I mean, it's a fabric-covered building held up by a lot of aluminum structure. At first glance, you'd think it was a pretty solid building, but they call it the bubble for a reason out there.
Yeah, you know, Kevin, when you drive up in this area right along that road where that practice facility is, I mean, you can't help but see it. It's this huge mass in the middle of this area. A lot of people were saying they recall seeing the sign of the star as they're driving this area. Well, as soon as we drove up, we didn't even see the building. I mean, if that gives you a sense of how much damage there was. But as we got closer, it really just was a pile of that white material, and then that all of this metal just in a pile in the middle of the area where that facility used to stand. It's pretty impressive to see, Kevin.
And obviously, for people who have not been to Valley Ranch to see that building for themselves, it's a football-sized building. There is literally a football field inside that building.
Oh yeah, it's massive. It's massive. So I mean, if you can just imagine, you know, even if you think about Texas Stadium, how big that field is, put it underneath that bubble and then collapse it. That's pretty much what we're dealing with at this point.
All right, Ashanti, stay there. We'll be coming back to you in the next hour or so. We're going to have extended coverage on all of this, and of course, that tornado watch that continues until 7 o'clock tonight. Ashanti, stay with us. We'll be coming back to you. Our team coverage, though, continues right now with Matt Berry from the sports department. Matt is here. As you heard, Jerry Jones was in Kentucky for the Kentucky Derby. He was interviewed live on NBC5, and Matt has more on that. Matt?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you expect the owner to be there. Jerry Jones was there yesterday. Jerry Jones was in attendance at yesterday's first mini camp. He wasn't there today. He was in Lexington for the Kentucky Derby. We'll hear from Jerry in a minute. But first, we want to show you what this structure looks like. I mean, this is, like Ashanti just said, it is a football field covered with plastic-type material. It is very ostentatious when you see it. When you pull up, you see the big Dallas Cowboys star. It is big enough for a bunch of practices to go on inside there. It's where the Cowboys work during weather. When it's cold outside, it is what they deem their protected facility for weather that is going on, similar to what happened today. It is a big place. There are a lot of players in there at this time. The rookies were there. There were 12 rookies from this draft class. There were 27 players involved in all. We've been told that Joe DeCamillo, the special teams coach, was taken to the hospital with a neck injury. Coach Wade Phillips was quoted as saying that he was able to move his hands and his feet. But Joe DeCamillo, one of those coaches taken to the hospital. He was brought on this year to fix the special teams problems. Brett Maxey also, he had quite a big leg gash that had to be stitched up. He was also taken to the hospital. We were also told from our people out at Valley Ranch that some of the other people taken to the hospital were those that were in the Cowboys video department. And to give you an idea of what happens during practice out here, at every Cowboys practice, be it indoor, be it outdoor, there are people from the Cowboys video department that are in some scaffolding. They're on those scissor type things that elevate them up with cameras to get aerial video for the Cowboys practices for the coaches to break down post practice. In the indoor facility, there is actually like a little ramp, a little walk walkway on the top of the facility where these video department people get all of their video during practices for the coaches to break down. Obviously, when this situation took place, the building started shaking. It was, I would imagine, extremely difficult for the video department people to get down in this situation. These are who we are being told is in the hospital right now. 2 coaches from the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff. Jody Camillus, the special teams coach, with a neck injury. Wade Phillips was quoted as saying he was moving his legs and his feet. Brett Maxey, a secondary coach, had a leg gash. And we're being told the other people taken to the hospital with the Dallas Cowboys were 3 people from the video department who were up in that scaffolding shooting practice at the time of when this went down. I talked to a couple of players today. I talked to Stephen Hodge. He's a rookie from TCU. He was drafted in this draft just this last week. He told me that it was going on and the wind is blowing. When you're a football player in this type of facility, you don't expect anything to go wrong. You don't expect anything to happen. He actually said there was a little bit of laughter going on in there when the light started, because you're just thinking it's turning into kind of a haunted house situation. You're not expecting as a pro athlete to be in this kind of situation where the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to collapse. So the players didn't quite understand what was going on at the time, and then when they did understand what was going on at the time, they rushed out as quick as possible. I know it became a team effort at that point. They were making sure people weren't there. We were told Todd Archer, he's a Dallas Morning News beat writer, was trapped in the footage. He has since escaped from the footage. He said he was okay. We heard from him. We'll hear from him in a second. We heard from Dave Campo just kind of reiterating what went on. But certainly a frightening situation in the opening weekend of Cowboys minicamp. Again, all 12 rookies that were drafted this weekend, 27 players in all at practice this morning. And to give you kind of an indication, Kevin, of what they do in these minicamp practices, is there's a morning practice, which is what took place this morning. They had their morning practice. The players then go in for media availability. We spoke with those players after the morning practice. They are not available to the media after the afternoon practice. Wade Phillips was scheduled to talk to the media at 3:45. We heard from Dave Campo earlier today, and here's what he had to say.
Yes, our rookies, approximately 27 of them, recently drafted free agents, as well as our coaching staff, as well as our scouting, were the principal people, and there are a few media. And we know of at least one injury. They did not get good warning there, and the structure did collapse. And we're assessing who's injured at this particular time.
So far as we know, no fatalities.
No fatalities at this time that we're aware of. And actually, you and I just learned of this within the last 10 minutes, as you know. So
And you were on the phone with Rich Dalrymple, your director of media relations there, and other people in Dallas.
Yes, they were giving me some real accurate information there. And so we did do a head count because the entire structure collapsed, and did know that all of staff and all of the players were safe.
Obviously, that was Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, who was not in attendance at today's Cowboys minicamp. He was in Lexington for the Kentucky Derby. You saw it right here on NBC5. We did talk to Cowboys secondary coach Dave Campo, who was in attendance at today's practice. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, all of a sudden the walls and the lights started shaking, and we really didn't have too much time to react. And then all of a sudden you could see it start to move, so we just started running for the doors, and by the time he got to the doors, it was already on its way down. So a lot of guys actually got out the door, and then the structure hit them, and then we just tried to get guys out of there.
We heard reports that because of all the wind, it was hard to get the doors open. Did you see that at all?
Nah, it was. I think someone said, I didn't see it. Someone did say that they tried to get out the door and it almost sucked them right back in. They couldn't get out. Yeah, the vacuum kind of a deal. But overall, we were very fortunate today. That could have been. We did get some guys banged up, but we were very fortunate.
Do you think the fact that y'all did call the practice once you saw everything may have actually saved more people from getting hurt?
Well, I think we were getting ready to call it, and it was going. So I don't know that we were just very fortunate that it finished the way it did.
Do you know of any injuries as far as coaches or players?
No, I know there's some guys banged up, but I don't have any details on it. So.
Did you guys hear any warnings? Were there any warnings? Anybody inside or outside telling you?
No. It was just the walls started shaking, the lights started shaking, and all of a sudden it just went down. So there was not much warning at all.
And then what happened immediately after?
Well, everybody just started scrambling for the exits, and then some didn't get to the exits. It came right down on top of us, and then some of the guys that actually got out the door, it kept coming down and it hit them, you know, as they were outside the building. So it was kind of a, you know, some guys were in pockets, some guys were underneath stuff, so it just...
Where were you when it happened?
Well, we were in the middle of a drill, and then I just headed for the door, and I went down on the ground. When I saw it come down, I knew I wasn't going to get out the door. Just put my hands over my head, and it just kind of touched me as it came down. So I was actually didn't really get hit, which is fortunate. So
here is video from our CBS 11 crew just seconds before that collapse. You can see the lights swaying, 60 to 65 mile per hour winds or greater, according to Larry, were passing through at the time. The walls blowing there, then buckling, then the bubble collapsed there on top of the players that were inside, also the coaches who were inside, and journalists at the time, some of whom became trapped. A few had to be rescued. 10 people were injured at the time. The Cowboys are counting their blessings tonight, and it has nothing to do with a game. It has to do with all of them being accounted for, all of them being okay. However, 6 members of the coaching and support staff were injured. And our crews were out there and ran into a couple of them, including Brent Maxey, who's a secondary coach who had a deep gash to his right leg, Joe D. Camillus, a special teams coach, who was carried out of a side door on a stretcher. Also, Rich Beam has a back injury and possible punctured lung. Chris Hall has a shoulder injury. Those perches there that he's getting off of, those aluminum perches, they're 40 to 50 feet up. Before the collapse they were. 2 videographers were on top of those photojournalists, those who usually tape the Cowboys, collapsed. One broke his arm. Right now, many of the crews are still on the scene, combing the scene. Our Bud Gillette is there live right now from Valley Ranch. Bud, what's the latest?
Well, we're hopeful that we'll get something from David Tull, the official spokesman for the Irving Police Department, here shortly. Meantime, we have more rain coming in. We hear rumblings of thunder in the background. And, of course, we're all bracing for more of what caused what you see here behind me. This is the backside of the training facility. You can see the bubble there that has collapsed down on top of the superstructure. And you were talking about injuries to coaches and what have you. And we have David Tull is just now walking up. He's the Public Information Officer for the Irving Police Department. We'll hang on here while we get an opportunity to have David tell us what's going on. We have 2 media groups. David, tell us what's happening.
In the other building, give you all time to come over there. Make sure if you already got a rep in there, then we don't have any room for everybody.
David, we are all set. Can you give us any information, David?
Can you talk to us out here?
Well, this is live television. David Tull telling us that because there are some members of the media inside, they're actually going to move the news conference from this location where we anticipated it to inside the building. They're going to put a restriction on the number of people who can be there. It's going to be one media representative from each of the media outlets. So it's going to be a while, apparently, before we get some of the confirmation of what we have heard and Narissa, you've been reporting to us for the last several hours. I'm live at Valley Ranch, Bud Gillette, CBS 11 News.
We heard earlier from Dave Campo, who's the Cowboys secondary coach who was inside. He talked to us already, a member of the Cowboys staff who said that they're just lucky, just fortunate right now that they are okay. His son was also inside with him at the time, and he at the first didn't know where he was or if he was okay. There was a frantic nature at first, as you can understand. Some of the Cowboys family members, the coaches, family members were arriving at the scene wondering if people were okay. They hadn't heard from their loved ones. Chris Hall's wife was at the gate pleading for information because she hadn't heard from him. Then when they did, they heard that he had an injured shoulder. Here's pictures from our photographer just after this happened. We understand from people who were inside as well that they first started at 3:30 when this happened, noticing water coming through the roof. The raindrops started falling. Then the lights started swaying. Then the lights blew out. Then the wind started blowing the walls, and the bubble dome there of the training facility just collapsed. It collapsed on people inside. That aluminum framing was pinning some people. It had some people pinned inside, and a lot of confusion there, but a lot of it has been sorted out now. Only 10 people confirmed injured. You know, as we recap, around 3:30 this afternoon, the bubble dome at the training facilities where the Cowboys practice at Valley Ranch collapsed amid 60 to 65 mile per hour or higher winds. And we had our CBS 11 sports team. It was there. They were covering the Cowboys rookies at practice when the facility came crashing down. Our CBS 11 Steve Dennis joins us live from Valley Ranch with a first-hand account. Steve, you were just outside and your photographer was inside at the time?
That is correct. We were covering rookie minicamp like we normally would. I was out in the truck editing. Brett was inside shooting. And Brett called me. It was pouring down rain and blowing hard. I couldn't get to the bubble. And Brett called me and told me to call 911 in a panic, and I did. And then I went that way. And I can tell you what I first witnessed when I got out there. A minute later, I mean, the thing was down and nobody was coming out, which was very scary from my point of view because they were all in there. 27 players, the rookies, the drafted rookies, the undrafted free agents, and some veterans off the practice squad from last year, all the coaches and all the support staff shooting it. But then, and things were frantic for about 45 minutes as they cleared things up. But that's what I witnessed. Now, Brett Kelly, our photojournalist, was in there shooting practice, and he'll now tell you what he witnessed inside.
As the practice was going on, the walls and the ceiling of the practice facility started to shake with the wind, and the next thing we knew, lights started swaying, and then one of the walls came crashing down, and it was a really, you can see the lights right there starting to sway, and then the next thing we knew, the building was on the ground.
All right. Brett Kelly, we appreciate you giving your firsthand account and also this wonderful video that's come in. We appreciate that you are okay. But at the time, you were not taking cover. You were going about his business as usual, as were the Cowboys. And from Jerry Jones, who's now at the Kentucky Derby, he just responded to this, and he said, quote, that they did not get good warning. They were out there practicing. When this started to happen, we understand that you saw raindrops and then the collapse. What did everyone do? Did they know what was happening?
You know, we really didn't. We knew that there was a big storm outside because we could hear the rain coming down on the building. But, you know, this is one of those things I guess you just can't expect to happen because it was really within a minute after the heavy rain started that the wind picked up, and then eventually the building collapsed.